5 ways to finish the year stronger than ever.
And I think reflection is one of the hardest things to do, but actually it's one of the most important parts to a health and fitness journey because it's the feedback to let you know whether you have succeeded or if you haven't. When you come to the end of the year, it's a time for me to actually reflect, but then also to look at what's ahead. What do I want to do next year and keep me motivated? Something that's going to pull me. The biggest mistake I made earlier on in my career was being too vague with goals. Oh, you want to get strong? Cool, let's get you strong. But what does that even look like? What does that even mean? Every time that you say yes to something that isn't serving you is a no to something that you really want to do.
Choose simple, choose daily. It's be consistently good rather than occasionally great, because we can all be great for a day, but if you can be consistently good, that is just truly where you're going to see, I guess, your true potential come through, right?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the T2 Fit Talks podcast, where we aim to educate and inspire individuals to achieve their full potential. I'm your host JT, and today is episode 21, and we are looking at 5 ways that you can finish the year stronger than ever. And to do that, I'm joined by Mr. T2 Fit himself, Mr. Luke Turner. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. It feels like it's been a minute since we've sat down and done
it's
this.
It's got to be about a year and a half.
Is
the
it
first
really?
episode, wasn't it?
Have we not done one since? I can't remember
Have
now.
we?
We must have.
I think we have done one more
we
with
must have
Frankie,
done one.
the photo shoot one.
Of course.
Yeah.
But this is the first time since actually just me and you.
Yeah,
There we
totally.
go. There we go.
Yeah. So thank you for having me back on.
That's right. It's an absolute pleasure, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. 5 ways to finish the year stronger than ever. A number of avenues that we can go down with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've kind of gone with the main 5, I would say. And the first one I actually wanted to touch upon potentially is one that wouldn't necessarily always come to someone's mind. We always think, I guess, finish the year and it's teeing up the next year. We look ahead straight away. New Year's resolutions, what's going to happen next year. But actually, I think a huge part of it is around reflection, self-reflection, and actually looking back on what has been a very ridiculously quick year of 2024 and kind of taking a bit of a self-audit, like what has gone well, maybe what hasn't gone so well. Are there certain things that maybe at the start of the year, New Year's resolutions or whatever, that you had set out to achieve? Have you done that? Have you not? And the big question, I guess, alongside that is why? So why were you maybe successful? Why maybe weren't you successful? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think reflection is, we've just been discussing it off camera, is one of the hardest things to do. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes the thing that we don't always put in the diary to do, because it's actually hard work. Like reviewing how we've done, have we been successful, have we not? But actually it's one of the most important parts to a health and fitness journey, because it's the feedback to let you know whether you have succeeded or if you haven't, or what do you need to improve to make sure that if that's still a target of yours, that you reevaluate how you're going to work towards that goal. So for me, this year was very different to the last couple of years. Spoken about it before. I think we probably discussed it on the previous podcast episode where I did the 100k run, then the 12 marathons in 12 months. This year, the biggest project for me was around opening up Purley, which we're in at the moment. And I'll tell you what, the other podcast episode we did was in Purley with Cass. That was probably the last one.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it looks a little bit different. And for me, I just knew that moving into, well, if you take us back to 2023, this time last year, I knew that for me with my health and fitness, what I could commit to was very different to what I committed to the years before that. So understanding the why is really, really important. But when you come to the end of the year, I love December purely because I know that it's a time for me to actually reflect and review how I've done, how I've performed on a personal and professional level, but then also to look at what's ahead. What do I want to do next year? What's going to get me up in the morning and get me excited and keep me motivated? Something that's going to pull me, stretch me and challenge me as well at the same time. But yeah, to go back actually, the reason why we'll come into that, I guess, with health and fitness this year compared to what I've done in previous years, set such massive goals is purely because I've had other commitments that I've needed to focus on. And that's also another important part to any time when you come to the end of the year is actually looking at what else is in the diary with the year to come that we might need to look at alongside a health and fitness goal.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we're talking about this as in kind of reflecting upon a whole year, like a 12-month cycle. But how often do you actually reflect? Do you do it like reflect on a day? Do you reflect weekly? Do you reflect monthly? Like how often do you actually sit down and kind of audit what's happened?
Yeah, not as much as I should. Once a month is in my diary for a couple of hours. That's on that's every facet from health and fitness goals to business, personal, all that kind of stuff I review for a couple of hours once a month. That's in the diary. I should probably do it on a more regular basis. But for me, what I find really helpful is actually just review my goals on a daily basis. That's something that I do as a non-negotiable. I'm good at looking at the target. I'm not so good at reflecting on it. Not like in terms of, okay, I'm 80% there. We do that on a weekly basis. I look at that all the time. So for example, leading up to High Rocks, I knew what the target was. I knew where we were and I knew where we needed to be. And that was something I would measure on a daily basis. And of course, when you get to High Rocks, you know whether you've been successful or you haven't. But even when I think back to High Rocks, I haven't done a great deal of reflecting. That's definitely one of my weak points when I think back to what I could be doing better, actually moving into the new year's, reflecting on those things. But I very much like to, it's black and white. Have I achieved it or have I not? Okay, I haven't achieved it. Here's what we need to do next time. And sometimes I think on the flip to that, in the past, I've been paralyzed by reflecting too much and looking at, okay, what could I have done better? How could I have changed that? And being frustrated with myself rather than going, you know what, we didn't succeed. Let's go on to the next thing. But I do think the reflection can give you feedback. So some questions that are really good to ask when it comes down to reflecting, whether you were to do this on a monthly or quarterly basis, is like, is the goal that I still have still important to me? Because what you might set today for 2025 could actually be different come March time. Your priorities might change. Like for me, we're about to have our second child in January. My goals and the way I set targets for next year is going to be very different to how I did a year ago, because the time was just very different. So looking at like, when you set a target, when you set a goal, the questions you can ask are like, is this goal still important to me? Is this goal something that I still feel that I'm working towards and I'm actually getting closer towards, and is something that's achievable for me? And going through frameworks like the SMART framework is awesome, because it allows you to go through and set goals that you can actually measure instead of just throwing out numbers. Like whenever I speak to anybody who's looking to get in shape, a lot of the goals that somebody would set initially would be, I want to lose weight. But it's about diving a little bit deeper to that and being specific so that you can actually measure something, measure an outcome. And that way it's actually much more motivating, because you know whether you're close to it or not, rather than I want to lose weight, but how do you know when you've got there or when you haven't?
Do you think people can learn more from reflecting on their wins, or could they learn more from reflecting on their failures?
That's a great question. I want to say both. A year ago, I probably would have said more from failures, because for me, I've always learned from failures. But at the same time, I've actually learned more lessons recently from winning more, which is, I don't know. I like I said, a year ago, I would never have said that. But I think when you have the mindset of, I learn from my failures, which is completely right, by the way. You do learn from your failures. I think what you're looking for is failure to learn. Like, I want to learn from, okay, I won. I achieved the sub 60-minute High Rocks. How can we make it better? Do you know what I mean? I think there is a lot of lesson that you can learn a lot from that too. And I think I do hear a lot nowadays, like, you learn from your lessons, but actually that's not what we're optimizing for. We're optimizing for winning. So I do think you learn a lot from that, because it gives you, if you're winning and you're reflecting on that win and you go, you know what, I freaking smashed that. Like, there's a framework that I go through, and one of the 5 parts of that is setting a reward next to a target that you achieve. The dopamine that will be released from that, which will allow you to want to do more of that and set more goals, more challenges, is more effective than losing and having to reset a new target, because you're having to renegotiate a new goal to figure out what that's going to be. So I think both, but I would actually say learning from wins is just as important as learning from maybe failures. What do you think on that?
It's a tricky one. I think, you know what we're like. We're inherently focused on the negative. It's a lot easier to draw upon the negatives than it is the successes. But ultimately, if we've been successful in some way, shape or form, we have done something right to be successful and win. So yeah, I'm a 50-50 on it. But ultimately, I think we need to be better at understanding when we have been successful, when we have won, because there must have been something. Either it meant something to me enough to kind of make things happen, or I've put the right steps in place, I've said no or whatever, we'll come on to that later on. But I've done something correct for me to win. Therefore, that's got to be a pattern that I can repeat at some point. It has to be.
Yeah.
but there's obviously negatives that we need to have a look at and go and address and understand maybe why that wasn't successful. So that, like I say, there's got to be elements of both.
Yeah.
But I think we are inherently focused on the negatives all of the time, and actually understanding and realizing where and when we've been successful. But again, really starting to understand why. Like, what was put in place? Was it just, it was more important to me at the right time? I think we can do a lot from that. But it wasn't something for me personally that was even on my radar until I actually came to T2 Fit. Like, looking at where I've been winning, you know, whether it be in a meeting or a sit down, like, what's been your win this week? I'd never done that before. I'd even thought about it, because again, negatives to me were always going to be the thing at the forefront.
Yeah.
And understanding, you know, where I've done something good, I was like, nah, even this weekend, I'm getting better at it, but having high rocks or whatever, it's like, yeah, okay, that was all right.
Yeah.
But it could be faster. And it's a kind of a good place to be. I'd argue it's a slightly negative place to be. But understanding wins, like I say, was something that I had never even thought about until I came here. What was it that kind of put you onto that in the first place? Where did you hear it from someone? Was it a mentor?
You know what? It probably was a mentor. I don't know where I heard it from. As in sharing wins, like reflecting on wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think exactly what you've just mentioned there. I could be the exact same, and I still am now. Like, we hit 62-minute high rocks. Yeah, it's an amazing time, but I want to do better. And it's the same for you. You know, we'll probably hit sub 60 and go, yeah, and I'm really good, but would find the negative to pull out. I know it could have been better. Yeah. Which I think maybe that's maybe comes from a sporting background too. When you know you've got a little bit more, and it's like, okay, back to practice, make it better. And it can be, I personally would rather be like that than not. I'd rather not be, you know, okay, yeah, I'm happy with that, that's cool. I'm happy with it. I'm not saying it's a negative. I'm not happy with the way I reflect on that stuff, but I think it's just something to take into consideration. Yeah. The reflecting on wins, I really don't know, you know. I think maybe a mentor, I heard it from somewhere, and then I think I started to do it, and I started to realize, oh crap, there's actually a lot of wins that go on a weekly basis that we don't reflect on. And what you just said there is so true. You can be so aware of all the negative things in the world, what's going on, whether it's on the news, whether it's in your own life, whether it's in what's going on with family, friends, at work. And sometimes it's like, you know, there's a lot more going on that's going well than you realize. Yeah. And when you're caught in that bubble, it's easy to look at the negative stuff. Why do you think the news just put across negative things? Because people want to listen to it more. It becomes addictive. Whereas wins, it's like, it's harder to reflect and look at. And I think in some ways too, when it comes down to health and fitness, I think we can have that feeling of maybe we're bragging. Maybe we're like, yeah, I've done this, or I've lost this amount of weight, or I've lifted this weight, or I've been able to do this run in this time. I think sometimes it's like the thing to do is to protect other people, is to say I did this, but because you don't want them to feel bad, but you make it sound negative. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's got a lot to do with it too. And by the way, I'm just as guilty of it. So.
There's definitely a positive and negative to it. I think when you were saying there about we've probably achieved more, we've been more successful than we think, there was a little quote that we shared at the summit a while back, and it was like, you've achieved things this year that you said at the start of the year would make you happy.
Yes, 100%.
It really struck a chord.
Yeah.
It's like, because, you know, okay, we didn't get the hour, but 62 minutes, like, we probably at the start of the year would have been pretty happy with that. Yeah. We've achieved that, and it's like, well, that probably should make me happy. Like the 112 from the weekend should probably make me happy. But this is not off topic, but because it was self-reflection, I was reflecting on Saturday, and I think I came to the realization that the end goal of whatever I got and whatever I look at getting this year, that's great, and I want a faster time. But I think what I really started to understand was it's less about the end product and more about the journey. Like, I really enjoy, although I wouldn't necessarily say every week, but I really enjoy the strategy of now looking forward to 2025 and planning what that sub 60 is going to look like. Yeah. I enjoy having that level of accountability every week, that I know that if I don't really want to go out for intervals on a Sunday, I'm going to make it happen anyway.
Yeah.
So the end result's great. But actually, I think what I've fallen in love with is the journey and the process, which I guess can be health and fitness related. It could be business related, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Definitely. I think the pursuit is the most enjoyable thing. And sometimes you don't realize that's the part that you fall in love with the most.
Yeah.
The challenge of it, like you said, not wanting to get up on a Sunday and do it, but then you go and do it anyway. That's where the real fun is, especially when you come to game day and you've done the competition or you've come to the event that you're doing. You appreciate it more because you know the work that's gone into it. I always say, like, every challenge I've ever done, the easy part is showing up on the day. Like, the competition is the easy part. It's the 6 months of training prior leading up to that, where you've had to go out and run long distances. You've had to go and lift weights when you haven't felt like it. You've had to do things that you haven't really wanted to. You've had to give up certain things or sacrifice certain situations where you haven't been able to maybe go out and eat something that you know you need to be a bit cleaner. Mm-hmm. But that's what makes it more rewarding at the end, because you appreciate it more. And that's why I mentioned earlier about linking a reward to the goal, because it makes you appreciate that more.
Yeah. And it's also going to be something that if you start to really enjoy that process, adherence to whatever it is, the program, and consistency is going to be higher as well. Massively.
Yeah, 100%.
So number 2 is get really clear.
Mm-hmm.
So like starting to dive a little bit deeper into your reality right now versus the result that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of dive into this in the GROW model when we look at setting goals, basically the goal, reality, the obstacles and stuff that you face, but also the options that we can have there to overcome those.
Yeah.
And a time frame when, to the GROW model.
Yeah.
Kind of like the self-reflection, I think it's incredibly important to understand where you are right now. And it's a bit like, if someone's looking at dropping body fat, building lean muscle tissue, and he goes like, I want to eat better and I want to kind of fuel performance, whatever it may be, tracking food, understanding where you are right now, what your intake is going to be so key to then make changes moving forward.
Yeah.
But then also just taking stock of kind of where you want to be, and then drawing a bit of a parallel between the two. I'm here right now, I want to be there. What steps do I need to put in place to get there? And this is something that you kind of spoke about, again, in a summit actually, about your future self.
Yeah.
Can I talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so your future self is essentially an idea that you would write yourself a message or even do like a selfie video where you talk about you being in the version of where you want to be. So it might look like something like this, like let's say your target is to lose 10 pounds of body fat, meet the woman of your dreams, get your dream job. You're talking to that person who you are today and saying like, this is the stuff you've done. This is where you're at. This is how you feel. This is what life looks like. You've done it. And reflecting on that video, like whenever I've done that kind of stuff or I've written a message out, it's hard to do. It's a bit like the self-reflection stuff. It's really tough to do because you've got to sit there and think. And that's where the real work is, because it gets you clear on what you want. But you know what, just coming back to that, looking at what you want to do. One of the biggest things that I put in place was getting the calendar for the whole year. It's called the preloaded year. And you essentially start to look at everything in front of you from those 12 months and just throwing as much as you can down. Because I think a lot of the challenge is, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I can commit to. But you know what, if you start in order of like family commitments, this is going to take some time. But if somebody was to sit down and get literally January to December for 2025 and plot down every birthday, every family event, every holiday that they've got, and some people might think this is quite restrictive and it's like, oh my God, I've got to commit to all these things. But when you actually have all of your commitments for the new year, when it comes down to setting goals, you can actually get really clear on what it is that is possible for you instead of setting things that run unrealistic. I've already actually done that part of it. There's other parts that I need to improve on in terms of looking at next year that I'm looking to work on. But I've put it down every single thing in terms of when I'm going to be away, when I'm going to have time off, when there's birthdays that I can't miss that I need to be around for. And then I fit around stuff alongside that, because I need to make sure that I've got a clear stretch for all the challenges or competitions or fitness things that I want going on. And that way it doesn't feel like you're just, because sometimes we can just wake up with a feeling and go, I'm going to do that next year. I'm going to do that. I'm going to commit to that. Like me and Hannah, we're going to be doing a half marathon next year. That's in the diary, that's planned. I know what we need to do 3 months prior to that point and what commitments that I need to negotiate. So one of the biggest things around getting clear is the GROW model is awesome, absolutely. But actually just looking at the next 12 months and what have you got in the diary that's really important, because I think the health and fitness side of things needs to be 100% a priority, but also your kids' birthdays is a priority. You know, taking your wife out or your husband out on a date night is a priority. Like those things are important to also have alongside it. Holidays are important. You know, having time off work is important. Having time to recharge and reset and knowing where you're going to put that in the diary is important. So then you can fit everything else alongside it and be super clear. I've not done it for a whole year before. I did a little bit around on from a business front for the preloaded year this year, which worked really well. But I'm taking things to the next level from a personal standpoint for 2025, which for me just allows me to really be detailed. And that, coming back to what you mentioned earlier, which I think we're going to come on to, which is around saying no, is it makes it easier to say no. If you're planned the year before, how much easier is it when something comes up in the diary or somebody wants to do something? How much easier is it to say no rather than saying yes? Because a yes is a no to something you really want to do. But I guess I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Like you say, that's just planning ahead and getting organised, which makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think the trickier bit to that is when you're really thinking about you and getting like your reality. I think you got to start asking yourself some tougher questions, and you've got to start thinking, okay, well, how much do I really want this? How much work am I genuinely willing to put in? And you've got to, it's not a character assassination of yourself, but you've got to really kind of bring yourself back down to the bare bones and go like, this is where I'm at. I'm right here, right now. I want to be here. What truly do I need to do? But it's that, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things in that framework I said about the reward, the first part is actually giving yourself permission to dream, to actually really think about what it is that you want. And sometimes it can be, you know, I was reviewing one of Tom's calls the other day with somebody who was looking to join the gym. And one of the things that they mentioned, because I listen to things when people say something that I'm like, oh, it's interesting they said that. One of the things was like, I'll never get back down to where I was at 21 or the body weight that I was at. And I was like, I wasn't on the call, but I was thinking, why not? Why can't you? Why can't you do that? This actually takes me back to our first podcast. Why not?
Yeah.
But it really is like that when it comes down to, I think we're sometimes afraid to dream and be big and bold. But why can't you get back down to where you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Why can't you be back in a size 10? Why can't you be in a medium t-shirt? So just thinking big. I spoke about it the other week actually on Instagram. You know, when we set out on the sub 60 minutes, it kind of felt like an unrealistic target, and it was just a number that I plucked out of the sky. But focusing on that allowed us to get so much further than where we would have ended up if we had focused on 108. So it's about setting some targets. Realistic is something we do want to look at 100%. We want to be realistic with what we have, but actually thinking like, not even maybe for next year, thinking about where do I want to be in 2 or 3 years time, coming back to that letter you write yourself or the video that you create, and then looking at what do I need to do next year to get closer to that. So if I give you an example, right, I created this, the 5 steps, and I've taught it to you guys, and I've done it a little bit with some of the members. One of the examples I gave was to be on the front cover of Men's Health, as an example, right? And it went like permission to dream, front cover of Men's Health. Standard, what are the things that I need to uphold every day, every week? How many times a week do I need to be training? What are the resources? So all the resources that I need. Is it a coach that I need? Is it somebody I need to talk to who's been on the cover before? Who do I need to meet to be able to get on the front cover of that? What kind of following do I need to have to be able to get onto that? The fourth one is creating a trigger. When am I going to review this goal? Which would be 3 times a day for me. I'd literally, when I get in the car, what's the trigger? It's get in the car before I go to bed, when I brush my teeth, first thing in the morning. And the last one is set a reward alongside it. So when I achieve X, that's the reward I have. And when I created that, I was like, you know what? Why not? Why not? Why freaking not? But that's not a next year kind of goal. That's a 2026 kind of goal. But I'm like, what can I do next year that's going to get me a little bit closer towards that aligns with the goal? And it comes down to your values and everything like that, which we could go into a lot more detail. But there's one of the goals for 2026. But you kind of get the idea around like just giving yourself permission to think a little bit bigger, and not being afraid. Like, who cares? I've just said it. That was the first person I've told, and everyone else watching.
So do you think it is that we've lost the ability to dream, or do you think that it just still comes down to the roots of we're scared to fail?
I think it's that we're scared to fail and look silly. I'll talk about the 3 fears, which is fear of being successful, fear of judgment, and fear of failure. And a lot of the time, like when I think back to any time that I've been acted a bit small, or I haven't really wanted to tell somebody something about something, whether it was a goal of mine because I was afraid to fail, it comes back to what I mentioned earlier, which is actually being afraid to tell somebody who might not be thinking as big as you are, and that you're going to scare them, or that if you achieve it, that person's going to be like, you're going to make that person feel worse than they are. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, there's a couple, the female decides to join a gym. She gets in unbelievable shape. The last thing that she wants to do is make her husband feel uncomfortable. Maybe she does because she wants him to get his ass into gear. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, we want to be in a position where we see other people win. And when that person isn't ready to make a change, sometimes you can actually hold back on the things that you're communicating because they're not able to see that, and you don't want them to feel worse. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. So if I'm losing loads of body fat and I'm fitting into all these new dresses, I'm getting all these compliments. Sometimes I can actually, like, what would be the word? Not sabotage, self-deprecate, and I can say things like, no, you don't know how hard it actually is, or you wouldn't want to be like this, and all that kind of stuff, because we're afraid to offend the person or make that person feel uncomfortable. But ultimately, what you got to think about is any time that you're stepping into a new version of you, use that as the fuel to inspire other people to do that, because it won't make them feel uncomfortable, but if it does, great, because you're probably going to inspire them to go and take action and do something. Yeah, especially if you've been in a position where you've had bad habits, bad behaviors, bad beliefs. People will look at that and go, wow, they've managed to turn it around. What could I do?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that we've mentioned there is, I guess, looking quite far into the future.
Yep.
A year, two, maybe even longer. Setting up plans, like really looking to go into detail, planning ahead. Can feel quite daunting.
Mm.
What would someone's first step be?
It depends on, I guess it depends on what the actual thing is that you're interested in doing. And I guess most people will know what that is because they're probably going to be unhappy with something, whether it's the way they look, it's the way they perform, it's maybe that every time they go to sign up for a marathon, they get injured in the process. Like, that's what we need to get clear on. Like, what actually is that? It doesn't need to just be about body fat. It doesn't need to be just around a weight that you lift. But anybody watching this will know what they're thinking right now is something they wanted to change. They just haven't yet done it. And it's then looking at, okay, what are the people, what are the things that I need to do? Who do I need to meet to ensure that I actually hit this target? It could be somebody who's actually done it before. I've just taken you through that framework, the permission to dream. It's the standard, it's the resources. It might be a coach that you need to meet that can actually break this all down for you. I'm a big believer in actually getting finding somebody who's done it already so I can just accelerate it so much better. Like, anyone who joins the gym here, some of them could maybe go and train on their own. Some of them could maybe go and do that. We've got Mr. DPD. Some of them, somebody could probably go and figure out how to go and train. Come pull a program off of the website. Come watch something on YouTube. But it's ultimately about finding somebody who can help you accelerate that by 10 times. So you don't have to have the pain of having to program all that stuff and put that stuff together, or know if you're actually going in the right direction. Somebody to give you feedback, somebody to hold you accountable, somebody to support you. So I'm a big believer in hiring somebody to coach you and to help you, because it will speed up that whole process and to challenge your thinking. You know, I just said about that call I reviewed. You want someone who can say, like, why can't you do that? Because whenever I've done that with the circle that I have, and I've said something and they challenge me back, I go, you know what, you're right. Because if we're giving ourselves advice, that's a big problem. So you want to have other people, like counsel, people you trust, and people who you know are going to give you the truth, not people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. You want people to challenge you. That's probably where it needs to start. But yeah, I think a coach can really help you unlock that and see what's possible, because it might not, like you running across the Sahara Desert might not be something that is possible right now. So you need somebody to tell you, like, what's the kind of time frame on that? Yeah. Where, like, how long is that going to take? What do I need to do first? Do I need to run a couple of marathons? Do I need to, train in a few different countries? What do I need to do? So yeah, I think figuring out what it is you need to do and who you need to meet, it's usually somebody who's going to allow you to go to that next level, without a doubt.
I think that kind of ties us quite nicely in a roundabout way into number 3, because you're quite right. And I think having a coach, having the right person around you, or people around you, being in the right environment, is going to be the thing that can really push you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Can help you be successful. But the word there is kind of help you be successful. It's not going to be the thing necessarily that drives you to be successful. And where I'm going with that is the real drive comes down to what I've got down here for number 3, which is understanding your value and your motivations. And we kind of tie that into understanding what your why is. So, if you're saying about running across the Sahara, I know that I'm not going to do that because I don't want to do that. It doesn't align with my values. I have no deep-rooted reason as to why I would do that. But there might be something else that is deep-rooted for me.
Yeah.
How important is understanding your why when it comes to looking forward to achieve something?
I think it's really important, because that's going to be the trigger for you when you're maybe not feeling that inspired or that motivated, and it's going to be the thing that gets you up in the morning. Again, like, we'll always do more for other people than we'll ever do for ourselves. So if that why is big enough around, because really we're not just getting in great shape for ourselves. We're not just like doing it for us. We're doing it because we want other people to notice us. We want our family to be proud of us. We want to be an inspiration to our friends and family and colleagues. Like we're doing it for other people too. Let's be honest. Like, we're not just doing it for us, because if we make other people feel good, that's going to make us feel good. And I've mentioned it before, coming in at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning doing team training, I would never work that hard if I was to come in and do that on my own, because I've got other people there. I've got a person opposite me who's working their socks off, who I'm trying to keep up with. And I've also got Bridge there. So it entices me to go, I need to keep working, I need to keep pushing. And, when I think back to times when I haven't had a why, it's always been a bit half-assed, a bit half-hearted. And I guess the why, if you were to look at High Rocks, for me, it was to go out and do better than the 108. And then when I look at the next time that we go around, it's going to be to beat the 102. But ultimately, deep down, it's because I want to prove that whatever I say I'm going to do, I'm going to accomplish. That's my why. That's one of my big values, which is I want to do whatever I say I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it until I've done it, even if it takes me 3 times.
How has your why changed? Like, even over the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, well, it's definitely evolved. I mean, obviously 5 years ago, we didn't even have a team. So it was just me. So my why was just myself. And then moving into Causden nearly 4 years ago, coming up to now, it will be in May. Then it started to be around leading the team better. So if I didn't have the goals and aspirations that I had for myself, I couldn't inspire the rest of the team. So that was a big why, to be able to show up for those guys. And it used to be getting up and doing the 4 a.m. workouts, the 4:30s, which I'm still an advocate for. But this year, what was massive for me was actually just to have a bit more kindness to myself, and not put so much pressure on myself to have to come in at those times, because I would sacrifice a lot of sleep to come in and train to prove a point. And when I look at it, I'm actually probably compromising a bit on my performance at work. So now I know the importance of having an extra couple of hours to be able to come in, train at all different types of the day, so I can lead better. And then I guess with having my daughter 2.5 years ago, that changed massively. Thinking about when she's of an age where she can see me and go, that's my dad, I'm proud, like that's what I want to do. It's funny, I was talking to somebody the other day actually about if Matilda or whoever comes along in January as well gets to 18, I'll be about 45. So I'll be able to do a doubles High Rocks. I was actually thinking about that. It's stuff like that, I think that's cool. That's really cool. Like, to be able to go and do that sort of stuff, that motivates me. So family is a big one. Colleagues, obviously, I want to make sure that I'm showing up for those guys. And then the business in itself, like clients. I always think my why is when members see me train, or if I show up on social media and show that I'm training, that gives me a purpose of like, I'm not just serving myself here, I'm actually like motivating the others. And when they do stuff, like we've just done High Rocks over the past weekend. What do we have? Three members who did High Rocks. Mm-hmm. That stuff motivates me. So it's a two-way relationship. The team inspire me, I inspire them. Members inspire me, I inspire them. Matilda inspires me, I inspire her. So do you know what I mean? It's the why is usually around those 3 things: family, business, and team.
You mentioned there that you've obviously things have evolved, things have changed.
Yeah.
Was it just purely the circumstances that changed kind of what you had to do, or was it the end result goal where I want to go here, therefore I've got to change the person that I am, and therefore kind of work backwards, what one came first? Is it the end result or the circumstance that you were in right there and then?
What's that for? For the target?
Yeah, like, so when you think about, okay, beforehand, like, no, last year,
Yeah.
we want to open a second site, therefore things have got to change.
Yeah.
Or was it your values that changed first, therefore I'm going to go and seek Pearly? You see what I mean? What way round does it go?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years on values. We started it quite early on, actually, when we had a pretty small team, on values, on mission, on who we wanted to be and how we wanted to make people feel. So that's been quite clear from day one. So I knew when something like Pearly came along, it was an easy yes for me. Is it going to allow us to grow individuals in the business? Yes. Is it going to allow us to serve more people? Yes. Is it going to make us stronger? Yes. So that's how it becomes a lot easier to make those kind of decisions. And it's the same for anything in health and fitness. When I think about, like, I want to feel confident, I want to feel strong, I want to feel fit, I want to look lean, I want to put a top on and feel like, yeah, I feel great. Will high rocks aiming for a sub 60 get me there? Yeah. Like, if I train hard and I do a sub 60 minute high rocks, not even sub 60, what we've just done, I was able to maintain my physique. I was able to work on areas that I'm weaker at. I'm able to be dialed in on my nutrition. So actually sometimes the goal that you set might actually just be serving the other goal that you have. And I always say that when it comes down to somebody finishing their first 90 days, finding something to actually get their teeth stuck into, following that part is really good, because what you don't want to do is hit the 90-day mark, get an incredible result and fall off. You want to be like, okay, what's the next thing that's pulling me forward? And for me, I always know when I haven't had something next, that's when I've always sabotaged and I'm suddenly like 4 steps back. I'm thinking, shit, all right, I need to do something else. I don't want to be reactive. I always want to be thinking a little bit further ahead. So,
do you think we always know exactly what our values and motivations are? Because I think sometimes we can be quite subconsciously protective over things. Like, I know you mentioned before where you're having, conversations or calls with prospective clients, and you would maybe pose the question to them about, what is it you're looking to achieve and why? And they give you quite a surface level answer. But actually then in 3, 4, 5 questions time, you can actually kind of dive a little bit deeper and you kind of break down those walls.
Yeah.
Like, is that because maybe they didn't know it at the time, or is it just a protective thing where we do just protect ourselves because we don't want to analyze and kind of assess that?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's pressure. If I say this, I've got to commit to this. Like, if I say I want to lose 20 kilos, shit, they're going to know I'm looking to lose 20 kilos. Whereas if I say I want to lose body weight, there's no measure of whether I've succeeded or if I haven't. And that's why it's our job to kind of push back and really get clear on it. Because from a coaching perspective, if we're not clear on the goal, that person isn't clear on the goal, that's a recipe for us actually not measuring whether we've had a good outcome or not. So it's a two-way street. From a client-coach relationship, it's important that both of you are clear with what the actual intention is and what that looks like. Because the biggest mistake I made earlier on in my career was being too vague with goals. Oh, you want to get strong? Cool, let's get you strong. But what does that even look like? What does that even mean? Oh, you want to do 5 pull-ups? Cool, that's awesome. Let's do that. That's what I want to know. And it's much easier. It's much more fun. Rather, because otherwise you don't know what you're working towards. So specificity is crucial, really, really important.
Yeah. Now we're going to move on to number 4, and this number 4 is an interesting one for me because arguably it's the easiest, yet proves time and time again to be the hardest, and that is the powering saying no.
Yeah.
How much power is there in just saying the word no?
Oh, I feel like such a hypocrite as well, talking about this. We were just talking about this off camera as well. I'm getting better at saying no myself. So I want to just put it out there that I'm not somebody who, has got this dialed in. I talk about things that I'm currently experiencing. So anytime anyone hears me talking about a certain subject or talking about something on Instagram, it's because that's what I'm going through at that time. Because I think whenever you go through something, it's much easier to talk about. Whereas if you don't know a subject or if you haven't been through it, so I always try and be conscious when I'm talking to people, because I have been in the exact same place or I'm in the place. So right now, like we just spoke off this, we're in December. I've made way too many commitments, and not because, like, no commitments that I'm not looking forward to that aren't important. I look at them and go, they're all really important. But ultimately, every time that you say yes to something that isn't serving you is a no to something that you really want to do. So give you an example, we spoke earlier on in this podcast about mapping out 2025 and looking at every single month. If you put all the important things in there, birthdays, school plays, trips, all that kind of stuff, and then you put the fitness around it, it makes it so much easier because, you know, things on a weekly basis are changing. Somebody's going to ping you a message and go, hey, we're going out this Saturday, do you fancy coming? Hey, we're going out this date, do you fancy coming? And it's easy to just try and please somebody and say, yeah, I'll be there, I'll come. But like I said at the beginning, it's every yes that you say to something that might not serve you right now is a no to something else, another opportunity. And that's why I get a bit fearful nowadays about making plans like way too in advance, because I always get round to them. I'm like, damn it. And you know, we want to please people. I'm just as guilty of that. I want to make people happy. If someone asks me for something, I want to say yes. But there comes a time where you need to help yourself. And to do that, you need to get better at saying no. Especially if you've got some really specific targets that you're looking to achieve. You've got to get to a place, or even a period in life, you might go through just a couple of months of saying no and just be like, you know, that's not serving me anymore. That relationship isn't serving me right now. That commitment that I keep saying yes to is not what I'm going to commit to over the next 3 months. But after that point, it's cool. And see how your life changes. It's made a big difference to me. Although right now, through December, that's not what I'm committing to because I haven't stuck to it. And the diary's just got busier and busier and busier. But someone once said to me, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. And it's very, very true. You know, right now my priority is getting us geared up for the new year. So when you look at my calendar, it reflects all of that. So that's a priority for me. But health and fitness wise, I'm like, okay, where can I squeeze this in? Like just before this podcast, I did the conditioning session this morning, and then I'm trying to do pull-ups, chin-ups, push-ups, curls and shoulder presses just to get like a quick little 30-minute session in. So that kind of that's a consequence of saying too many yeses to too many people.
Yeah.
You know.
Can we still be successful without saying no?
Can we still be successful without saying no? Without saying no.
And then, like, do we have to say no all the time, or is there just a middle ground? Like, can we say yes to all these things and? Like, oh yeah, I still have that meal out. I still have, you know, the few beers here and there, that bit of chocolate. Can we still do those things and be successful?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm living proof of it. I love food. I'm not a drinker, but I love food. I love a nice meal. I like a dessert. I've got a sweet tooth. I say yes to all those things because that's one of my enjoyments in life is going out and eating. But I don't do anything. I don't do drinking. I don't do drugs. I don't do smoking. The occasional cigar, maybe. But that's like, and a bit too much coffee now and again. That's my only vices.
As in now and again, i.e. daily basis.
Most days. So yeah, no, you can definitely say yes. But I think it's, you know, time is one of the biggest constraints that I hear so many people bring up, both active clients and people who are looking to get in shape. Even for me, like time is something that I lack of, especially if you've got a family. You know, when you've got school plays, you're picking kids, it can become quite overwhelming. So you can look at it through one lens and say no, or on the flip side, you can get help to be able to say yes to more things. And that's something that I've really learned over the past 6 months, is being able to delegate, being able to hire, being able to use other things out there that are going to allow you to say yes to those things if they are important. You know, I've spoken about it before, getting somebody to come and do the meal prep, getting that delivered to your house. If that's something that takes up time, if that's something you don't enjoy, and you do want to go and say yes to the things that you do really enjoy, then you shouldn't be in the kitchen for 3 hours on a Sunday prepping your food. Go and do some stuff with the kids. Go and do some training sessions. Do whatever you want to do with that extra time. And I think a lot of the time we can think about cost. A lot of people can go, oh, but it just costs money. I guarantee if you were to work with a meal prep company, you would save more money on a weekly basis. The amount of times that I've had to go to a BP or like an M&S and grab something, that's something that's reasonable, that you're coming out 15, 20 quid with what you spent. Easy. A meal prep company, you know that it could be at your door on a Monday, you got your food for the week, and you know, half the time when we make bad decisions, it's because we're hungry and we haven't got anything in the fridge, so we go and grab something quick and convenient. That's like the most dangerous thing you can do, is go to the supermarket hungry. So having stuff like meal prep in the house is a game changer. So it's removing that temptation of the things that you really need. But I think we digress a little bit.
Yeah, it makes sense though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, and I guess I'm going to relate this very much to nutrition, especially this time of year, meals, certain foods, drinks, alcohol, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think we can go in with the best intentions of saying no, but then we're made to feel guilty for saying no. Why do people do that, do you think? Why, like, even with close friends and family, they can, make you feel bad, make you feel guilty, almost like make you second guess yourself when actually you've gone in potentially to a party or a meal or something, and you've gone, okay, I've got this, like, I'm not going to have this, I'm not going to have that, and then you turn around and go like, nah, I'm all right, thank you, and they go like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, why, what fuels that?
Yeah. I think the culture is changing. I do think in 10 years' time, we are going to be in a place where there's like, it is normalized to not be drinking. I see it more and more and more and more and more. And people that I would never expect not to be drinking or not to be going out and going wild, which is really good. Because I do think we've created, especially in the UK, we've created this culture where it's, you're weird for not drinking. Like, what? You're not having, like, come on, have one. Come on. For me, I've never really felt like, I'm not a big goer outer anyway, but I've never really felt like I've needed to have a drink to change and have a good time. And actually, I'd be more concerned if I could only have a good time if I had to have a drink. Now, don't get me wrong. Am I like a bit more fired up when I've had a shot of tequila? Yeah, I am. But that's as far as I really like want to take it. And I think there's a lot more reasons to getting into that space, whether it's something you're dealing with that you're holding on to, that having that vice, having that drink is what allows you to relax and chill, which is totally cool. But I think what isn't cool is when you're going out with people, especially the ones you love, and they put pressure on you. That's a challenge. But we said about like saying no, but what about even removing things, removing people? Like, no joke, for you to get to the next level and even look at moving into a whole new version of you in 2025, it might be people that you need to remove from your life. I've had to do it. You know, if there are people putting pressure on you to do things that they know that don't serve you and your goals, and you've told them, listen, I'm trying to be good, and they still push you to do that, that's not a good friend. That's not something, even if it's a family member, gone. But
Yeah.
I'm just a bit more ruthless like that. I know it's hard for some people, but I really don't know why you'd have a relationship with somebody who pushes you to do things that aren't good for you. And that stuff fires me up. So I really hate that, because especially when I've been out and people are like, have a drink, just have a drink. What's the problem? Just one drink, just one. I'm like, no, that doesn't interest me at all. But when somebody, especially close to you, has known what you were before and who you're trying to become, it can also be them trying to protect themselves out of self-preservation. Mm-hmm. Because they know that if you change, maybe they're going to have to change, because you're going to almost have nothing else in common now. Like, you're my drinking buddy. Of course we're going to have a drink. We're going to go have a good time. We're going to go to our favourite kebab place after. Of course, you know. So that's a challenge. But you know what? And it's why I love this time of year, because I think it is a really good time to start from fresh and make some renegotiations with what you're going to be committing to in the new year. Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of the new year, new me, but I do like the fact that you can kind of put a lot to bed, come to the end of the year and go, this is that self-reflection piece where you go, this is what I've done too much of this year. I'm not doing that coming into the next year. Yeah. And then just tell people, just tell them honestly. If you tell the ones that you love that you're not doing those things any longer and they don't understand it, and just make a decision whether or not you still want that person to be in your life.
Yeah. And actually, I think just if you go back and you think about what we've mentioned there so far, if you do that reflection, if you get really clear on where you are right now, where you want to be, and you start to really home in on your values and motivations, and actually all of those kind of questions point to you saying no, then I think that tells you all you need to know. And it's sticking to your guns to a certain degree. And it's going like, I know this is the right thing for me, whether you're going to say that, laugh, joke, or whatever, like, it's a deep enough reason for me to say no. And that's how it's going to be. I think people also forget that, I know for me, if I say no to something, yes, it's an end goal, and it might be performance or aesthetics or whatever, it might be a challenge, but ultimately the person in front of me is probably going to get a better version of me.
Yeah.
Like, there and then. So again, close friends, family, you being, or me saying no and being successful and really sticking to my guns, that gives me confidence. That is success for me. Therefore, You know, whether it be in that party, that meal for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, that year, you got the best version of me. So
100%.
surely you would want that, right?
Yeah. You'd think so.
You'd think. Number 5.
Yep.
Choose simple. Choose daily. This, again, has to be a bit of a non-negotiable, because we often, I think, get paralyzed by perfection, where actually the first step forward could be the simplest thing, but just done on a daily basis. And you have your daily non-negotiables that you kind of mentioned earlier. And I think you would agree in saying that none of them are particularly challenging. They're just simple things done every single day. It kind of keeps you accountable, keeps you in the right mindset.
Yep.
And I heard a really good quote, actually, and Ben mentioned it. I think Nick Bear on a Nick Bear podcast mentioned it. It's be consistently good rather than occasionally great, which I loved, because we can all be great for a day, 2 days, maybe a week.
Yeah.
But if you can be consistently good for months, like years, that is just truly where you're going to see, I guess, your true potential come through, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's hard. Sometimes to even think about that is hard. You're like, well, I've got to do this for a year, 2 years. That's why we talk about like 90-day goals, but really it's not really 90 days. It's just a chunk of time to get you to where you really want to get to in 12 months to 2 years. If I said, JT, you're not going to get to your goal until 2 years, like you'll go, what? But if I said you can stick to these 5 things every day and you'll get to your goal in 2 years, you'd be like, oh, cool. That's all right. That's not too bad. And that's why the non-negotiables were born, because it allows you to look at things in a condensed period of time that are realistic, that are pretty reasonable, that are going to help you in so many different facets of life. It's not just about the steps or the hydration. It's about learning something new every day, reading 10 pages a day. That's like, there's times when I come in and my brain cannot take it and I'm like, I've got to read 10 pages. But it's just the muscle that you build and the confidence that comes after you've done it. And you said it before in the podcast, you know, confidence comes after doing the thing, not before doing the thing. And that's where I think sometimes, you know, if we just focus on the small things consistently every single day, and I hear it all the time, so I hate the fact I'm saying this, but it is true. Yeah. It will get you to where you want to get to, that next version of you. And really, even if it's slow progress, the confidence of doing it every day is which will build momentum and allow you to keep capitalizing on the results that you're getting.
I think it can be quite daunting sometimes to try and break a really big goal down into something small on a daily basis. And actually it can be quite confusing sometimes. Is that potentially where that use of a coach that we mentioned earlier, is that where the power of a coach can really come in to help you dial that in?
Yeah, 100%. A coach, but also a network, like other people who are doing it. Like if you were to come here and you were to look at what we're about to do in January with Athex, and I think we're taking something like 30 plus members to Athex, you can't help but be in that environment and go, oh, I fancy about that. So it's the coach is going to help you unlock what is possible for you and put the roadmap in place. But it's actually the community. It's other people doing things where you go, that person's exactly like me. Like, why can't I go and do that? And, you know, one of the initial conversations when we speak to somebody before joining is, where do you want to be in 90 days time? When we ask, where do you want to be in 12 months time? It's like, I want to get to my 90-day goal and maintain it. But we know that actually in 90 days, the best thing for them to do is evolve that goal into something a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, a little bit more challenging, and actually giving them looking at the potential in somebody and saying, this could be really good for you. Like, I know you're somebody who loves running alongside your strength training. Have you considered X, high rocks? Have you considered doing this? Have you considered like taking things a little bit further with your body composition goals? You said you want to go down another 10%. I think you can get to this in the next 3 months. What are you up for pushing it? Are you up for taking it to that next level? And then seeing what other people have done. You know, we've got so many people who've done different things in the gym. People done marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks, high rockses, Athexes, 3 peaks. Like, there's a range of different things that you can look at and go, I fancy a bit of that. Like you mentioned about the marathon across the Sahara. This doesn't appeal to you. Someone else might go, oh, that's a bit of me. 3 peaks doesn't appeal to John, but Mary's like, yeah, I'm up for a bit of a 3 peaks. And then it's just where they're at in that period of time, whether they want to commit to that. I've always said, like, Ironman is something that's on my radar. I want to do, but it's just not something I can commit to right now. With kid number 2 coming in January, I can't train for 9 months. I could, but do I want to neglect time with my team, on the business, with my family, with my new kid. No, I'm not ready. I'm not mentally there yet. Not willing to do that. 2026, maybe. We'll talk maybe this time next year about where that's going. I'd love to do an Ironman, but is it the right time for me to do it? Doesn't feel like it is. So that's also important to look at, is what things inspire you, but is that something that you can do right now? Not because you can't do it, but because it's not actually something that is on the calendar, coming back to that whole plan for the year and look at, is this something I could commit to for 9 months? Because it's not just 9 months, it's 3 hours a couple of nights a week, maybe every night of the week that you have to commit to. So, yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, you've now just committed to an Ironman 2026, so that's cool. So we'll have that on the podcast.
We'll do that. If Dan Haybird's watching,
yeah. And the reason I say that is because it's on my radar for 2026 as well. But
hey, but
so
once we've done High Rocks,
slightly shot myself in the foot with that one. Anyway, but so 2026, long time away. Ironman potentially, who knows? Maybe a half. What could you still do this year that's going to help you towards that, though? Because I think often we think really far in advance, unless I start cycling, running and swimming right now, then I'm not working towards it. But I don't believe it's true. Now, what kind of things could someone put into place right now that, even though they're not even thinking about signing up for 2026, could help them in the long run?
I think, looking at what we do here, which is finish strong across December, is maybe the thing that most people need right now is just enjoying training. It might be hard for somebody to believe who isn't training right now, but somebody who's in the gym here, or at a gym that they actually love going to the gym 4 times a week, like, just go and enjoy it, no pressure. Like, for me right now, I've actually got nothing that I'm working towards. I just want to stay in good shape. I want to fuel for just energy. I want to feel good. I want to still keep relatively good size, muscle, strength. I want to feel fit. I want to be around other people and move and train. So there's not any like tangible goal that I'm going to get at the end of December, but I just want to move into the new year in a good place and maintain where I'm at. So for somebody right now, actually the 2026 goal might actually just be, let's enjoy training and tick over. Because I know, like, whenever I've trained, I've always felt better. When I haven't trained and I've backed off of training, that's when I've got myself stuck in a rut. And that's where probably the belief system, if somebody was to back off training and stop moving, because I mean, a lot of people that we speak to, especially around this time of year, is like, I'll start in the new year because that's when I've got a bit more free time. When actually this time of year is the best time to get stuck into training, because if you need help most, it's in December. And if you can get December right, how much easier is it going to be when it comes into January and everyone else is getting started and you're 5 steps ahead? And that's where the real gains happen, is when you're not starting January 10 steps behind because you've had a bad December, you've been busy, you've overindulged, you've enjoyed yourself, which is totally cool, by the way. But what about if you train alongside that? Where could you be?
Yeah. There's a coach called, I think it's Andy McKenzie, who, when I first started being a PT, he was quite well known, I think, on social media and various bits and bobs for being quite outspoken, quite harsh. I think it's a Scotsman. And he actually I remember him saying that he never took new clients on in January. Like,
I remember you saying that.
Flatly refused. It's like, I'm not going to do it. Either you speak to me in December, or you speak to me if you're still interested in like February or March, or maybe even the first quarter of the year or something like that. It's like, if you're just talking to me in January because it's like the New Year's resolution type thing, it's like, I'm not interested. Yeah. Which I thought was always very, very interesting.
That is interesting. You know what's funny? When I look at the data from T2 Fit over the past 7 years, January is one of December's actually a busier month for us than January. Weirdly, February's even busier though. January, everyone thinks that it's going to be a massive surge and a massive rush. February, this is what's worrying about it. When people say I'll start in January, it never actually becomes January, because realistically we start, let's say, on the 6th of Jan, because it takes a few days to get back into work, get the kids back to school, all that kind of jazz, and we procrastinate. And then it's like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to wait until Feb. I wanted to start like from the beginning of Jan, or somebody goes out and starts running or joins a gym. That's when we find a lot of people join, because they've tried to do it on their own after they got all their new gym gear from Christmas. Santa Claus has dropped them off some new trainers. And then they come in into February and it's like, it's not just 1 month they've missed 2 months of getting ahead. And I've always thought about it this way. I never want to be in a position where in 2 months' time I reflect and go, I wish I'd just done that differently then. I wish I'd just got that coach, or I wish I'd just joined that gym then, rather than get into 2 months trying it on my own, making mistakes and being like, you know what, I could have had this within the first couple of weeks. I could have enjoyed training so much more. And it just depends on what's important to you. But I think especially the times that we're in right now, health and fitness has got to be one of the most important parts to what we look to put in the calendar for the new year. Because if it isn't, then we can't enjoy ourselves with all the other things that we have going on.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, we're going to call it there.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Looking forward to a very very chilled out December then for you, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, saying no. I'll be testing you as well. I'm going to throw a few things in your diary. I want to see if you say no to it.
I will be.
Yeah, I'll wait and see. I'll wait and see. There you have it, ladies and gents. Episode 21 in the books. We hope you have a fantastic December, a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we'll see you again very, very soon.